Hello class, and welcome to a mini lesson on how to resize and renumber your images using actions in Photoshop. So first you want to start by logging into your Drive file stream. And so I'm going to go into my Google Drive file stream. I'm going to go into my 9th grade folder, but your photo should be in Space Settlement Video Project. And then stop motion practice. You will have other folders here. And then I'm going to look. I have a good amount of numbers from day 1. I have less images from day 2. So I think that I will actually go into day 1 and use these. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that you protect the images that you took. And so by going back, I can right-click on day 1. I can copy those, and then by right-clicking in that same stop motion practice folder, I should be able to paste. And we'll just leave it called copy. That way I have a copy of these photos if something goes wrong. It's always a good idea to back up your work before you get started. So now I'm going to go into day 1. I'm going to make a new folder in here, and I'm going to call it resized and renumbered. We are going to need them to be renumbered without this image in the front for it to work in Adobe Flash. So this is where we're going to put all of these images after we are done with our actions in Photoshop. So for now, just leave that there. Go up to the top image, click on it, right-click on it, open with in Adobe Photoshop. If for some reason it is not there, please click on Choose Default Program, go to Browse, go to Adobe, Adobe Photoshop, scroll all the way to the bottom, and then it will be in there, always and forever at that computer. Click OK. It opens. You can see that my first picture had the date on it, but the other ones didn't. So if you look at the second one, I believe it was turned off. So I actually want to delete this first image because I don't want it in mine, but you may or may not need to do that. So as long as you have the first image open in the sequence, 7042, 7042, this should run smoothly. You may minimize this. And then you'll see over here, all of these items are called windows. We've spent a lot of time in layers, maybe some time in adjustments, maybe even some time in color, but today we're going to use a new one. So going under window, you want to turn on your actions. Also learning that keyboard command wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm going to click on actions. You can see that there are a lot of set actions, default actions. We are not going to use any of those because that's not helpful to us in this particular project. So we want to create a new action, just like a new layer in Photoshop. The symbol's the same. So new action. We want to call this resize, for those of you that don't have it the right size, and renumber. This will make everything run smoothly later. Once I click record, everything I do to this image will be recorded in this action. And so you don't want to mess around here and do other things because then it would do that to all of your photos. So if you do want to add like a filter or adjust the color or the brightness, then you could add that in here. But for now, let's just keep it simple. So resize and renumber. You could even add for Flash if you want to be specific. Click record. So now you can see I am recording, and the first thing I want to do is go to image size, and I want to make sure that this is the correct size for what I'm going to match in Flash later. So we'll come back to that in a separate tutorial, but that's what we need to make sure. If you followed my instructions on setting the camera to the right number, this should already be correct. 640 by 480, the pixels should be locked in. Constraining proportions should be checked so that if you change this number will change. If that's not constrained, then your images will warp to something that doesn't look believable or realistic. For this project, the resolution can go ahead and be set to 180. I wouldn't go any higher or lower. It's a speed thing. So this is good, but if you used an iPhone, this is where you're going to need to change at least your width to 640 and then pay attention to what number your height is automatically reset to. And again, you want this in pixels. If this is in inches, you'll probably crash your computer. So this is already good. I followed instructions, yay. So I'm going to click OK. I do not actually need to resize. What I do want to do though is I have a little bit, it's too bright. So I'd like to go into my adjustments and I'd like to go to exposure, and I'm going to move that out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit and click OK. So it did add some exposure. I don't necessarily need to resize because I followed instructions the first time. The renumbering is going to come in when we actually run the batch. So I'm actually done with my action at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and click stop. Now comes the fun part. This is where the computer does all of the work for you in changing this number to something that Adobe Flash can actually read and accept. So I'm going to go make sure it is stopped, of course. I'm going to go into File, and I'm going to go down to Automate. Now, depending on what version of Photoshop you have, this could say something differently here, but I'm going to click Batch. And then I want to make sure that I look at all of this stuff here. If you just click OK, you're going to have to redo it. And so we want to run from our default actions, but we actually want to choose the one we just created, which was resize and renumber. And then we don't want it just to come from any folder. So we're going to choose. This is where you need to get into your Google Drive file stream. You'll open that, go into my drive. Again, I have a 9th grade folder. You may or may not. What you want to find is your Space Settlement video project. And you want to go down to Stop Motion Practice. Again, I believe we got my photos for this in day 1. And so I'm just going to click that for now. That's where I'm getting them from. So they are in day 1. I'm going to get them from there. I'm just going to leave all of this alone. I do want to put them into a folder. And again, we have to be specific here. Google Drive file stream down to 9th grade into Space Settlement. Day 1, and this is where that other folder comes into play, resized and renumbered. If you did have to change the size, that's great. Otherwise, it's just going to renumber them now. Okay, so we push OK. And this is really important. We want to change the document name to a 1, 2, 3, or 4-digit serial number. I always just choose 4-digit serial number. Plus the extension, that would be like JPEG or GIF or whatever, but we're just going to leave it for what it is now. And starting at serial 1, that looks great. Stop for errors. We want to know if there's problems. And then we click OK, cross our fingers, and hopefully I didn't forget a step. So it's asking me if I'm going to save it as a JPEG, what size. It's going to ask me this for each photo, so don't go anywhere. Click OK. It's going to open another one. Click OK. You're going to have to keep clicking OK just to make sure you're watching to see that it is working. It is going in. It's changing the exposure on mine because I set it to. And hopefully it's also renumbering all of these. I'm just clicking OK. I'm just trusting that it's working. And you are going to have to do this again for every photo, but you can see that it is renaming them up there after it runs the action, which is the whole purpose of what we're doing this. I've got about 15 more to go. I think I had around 30 photos. Don't worry about the qualities of your photos if you're seeing them on the screen and they look blurry. That's just something to avoid on the actual project. Remember, this was just a practice. So I'm just gonna keep clicking OK. 7 more to go. And hopefully this worked. How we will know before we close out of Photoshop, of course, is we're going to open that folder. We have all of the original folders here, so that's good. And then resized and renumbered. If you have something other than what I am looking at, please call me over because something went wrong. This is what we need. I'm going to click on it. It is 640 pixels by 480 pixels, and it is renumbered. So this is going to work for Adobe Flash, and I will put the rest of the instructions in the next video. Thank you, and I hope you had a little bit of fun and learned something.